facilitating the integration, development, and second, regional and international cooperation. The environmental very good step. The last one was the approval of Parliament, uh, which in fact approved the access of Iraq to the Paris Agreement. This will put Iraq in the way, uh, which allows Iraq to have diversification in its economy, solutions that are based on nature, good treatments of climate problems. In fact, Iraq has its document related to the climate change from 2020 to 2030. This very important document is presented to send to the general and the World Secretary of the climate change. It is in fact important for all the departments and sectors, private sector, governmental sector, and Kurdistan region sectors. This environment supports the transference of Iraq from the development based on oil, that's to say, one uni economy, uni aspect economy to the green sustainable economy, because Iraq, in fact, is heading towards to the clean energy, listening depends on fossil fuels. This orientation is, in fact, emphasized by the framework agreement, the World International Frame Agreement. In fact, supporting these issues with the support of the international community and different changes and different entities is the first means to address this change and challenge. We invite all sectors to invest in all these issues and activities to use and employ modern and new technology. And we have to focus on first the necessity and the importance of awareness of the changes in climate, engaging people from academia, focusing on or engaging young men and women, finding legislative, finding out or setting up the legislative umbrella, and we are working on this issue with our colleagues and the concerned committees in the parliament. Third, building the capacities, governmental capacities in different departments and sectors according to Paris Agreement, because we are about to, in fact, open new gates of cooperation with United Nations organizations. This, the national document, the Iraqi national document, which emphasize and stress the commitment of each sector, state sector, and which is approved and ratified by the consent committee. In addition to a very important action, think and action, which is deploying modern technology to address changes in climate, especially in the rational use of water and using clean energy and using and exploiting flare gas. Hence, we are insisting the support of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Environment to support the cooperative approach to achieve and fulfill our goals as a sector committee, which follow up the commitments of Iraq to the international agreements and pushes with the gradual transference and move to achieving our goals and targets. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attending this conference, and I hope that the outputs of this event will in fact be very useful and flow to our joint efforts. And we believe that we cannot make any success and progress unless we have a regional system and an international support. Dear friends and colleagues, I thank those who organized and supported this event, especially GIZ and Capita, in addition to all the concerned sectors, ministries, which participated in the preparation or attending this conference. Hence, on behalf of the Minister of Environment, we say that let us ask for the help of Allah, and we start our important initiative. The words is for me, Mr. General Fisher, the I said Iraq. Please give, please have the floor.
Good morning, dear friends, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here and see all of you here for this important purpose. Iraq has been heavily impacted already now by the climate change and has been recently labeled as one of the actually most heavily vulnerable countries in the world to climate change, facing challenges with increasing extreme weather conditions, rising temperatures, reducing rainfall, increasing salinity, and the frequency of dust storms. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stressed the urgency
and stated that Mesopotamia shouldn't change from a historic land of two rivers to a country of none. Therefore, catalyzing transformation in Iraq is required in many sectors, including renewable energy, but also, of course, including energy efficiency, sustainable urban development, climate resilience in the economy, as well as through adapting the whole economic system. Identifying the different roles and responsibilities of all the stakeholders involved in development and implementation of actions towards climate change is very important, and I therefore strongly applaud the initiative by Capita to come up with an analysis of all the stakeholders. The stakeholder mapping and also today's conference builds on the plea of His Excellency, the Prime Minister, to ask the international community as well as the Iraqi stakeholders to support in revising and implementing the nationally determined contributions framework and to support the objectives therein. The German government supports already now climate action in Iraq through several projects. It builds on the Development Policy 2030 of the Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation, and it focuses on core strategies like mitigation and adaptation. The ICT project for youth is part of the German government cooperation in the area of digital global cooperation. And it supports the nexus of digital transformation on the one side and climate change on the other, both focusing on mitigation as well as adaptation. It supports the use of technologies that is, for example, artificial intelligence, green innovation, data analysis and analytics, machine learning, and other areas in the area of green and digital twin transition. Building on this skill set enables, or will hopefully enable, future generations to build on a data-driven and innovative solutions to combat the climate crisis. I think it is very important that this twin transition approach also creates opportunities for Iraq to unshackle itself from the overdependence on gas and oil. And it is, in my view, also very important to note that such climate smart solutions are not only as often depicted a burden, or are not only related to austerity and doing without, but they actually also offer vast opportunities for innovation and also for business opportunity. Nonetheless, we cannot forget that such strong transition processes also come with costs, and we need to be mindful that we can't leave anyone behind. In the international discussion, we call this just transition, so to make sure that climate change does not leave anyone behind. I think that this also ties in very closely with the participatory approach that His Excellency the Prime Minister has mentioned in his deliberations in this regard during the conference in Basra. Let me close. Climate action is required from many sides. We need the government and the support here, but we also need the civil society, the business community to tie in here. It's a long way, has just begun. We hope we can go some of the steps with you. Thanks a lot. And I wish you a lot of good deliberations today. Thank you.
نشكر السيد يونيب خوجة على
Thank
كلمته.
you.
والآن الكلمة للسيد إرفان ديبل رئيس
Now, the speech on now, the speech is for the GIZ to give his speech.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, dear distinguished guests from governmental agencies, international organizations, embassies, academia, NGOs, and the private sector. I hope you can see me with all these microphones in front of me, but I assume that you can definitely hear me. My name is Irfan Diebel. I am the head of the ICT project of GIZ, which looks at employment in the digital economy. We conduct trainings for advanced digital skills, and we try to enable environments for startups and entrepreneurships. And this is also why we actually collaborate with Capita very closely, and it's one of our strong partners and allies. But why are we here? I would like to ask you to project this one image that I came across during these days by chance. It says, "Be sure to wash your hands and all will be well." The first wave says COVID-19, the second recession, and the third climate change. You can't read it. And I think the world has maybe not understood until now what impact climate change will have on this planet. As said before, Iraq is one of the countries hit the most by climate change. So I assume that you are the ones actually understanding it much better than other nations. Even though it is on the political agendas around the world, I think this is not enough. There's a Chinese proverb saying, if you have learned something, but you don't act upon it, you have not understood it. So I think this is very interesting to look at, because we can have political agendas, we can talk about it, But if we don't actually understand the impact that climate change has, we will not change anything. And actually, I was told to walk this long way up here, not to have this shortcut, so there are no clashes on the stage. And I think this is the same with climate change. There is no shortcut. We have to go the full distance, and it will be a very long way. But I think there's a start. And the German government has put climate change on its agenda, not only of the development cooperation policy, but this allows us to also integrate climate change activities in our activities. So the ICT for youth projects that I'm heading has already done certain activities. We piloted a climate lab in Basra. We facilitated an investment in an Iraqi agri-tech startup. We implemented trainings for artificial intelligence and machine learning in Mosul and Baghdad. We initiated a Green Alliance in Sulaymaniyah and we are going to have a 5-day Green Tech event in Sulaymaniyah in June this year. And beforehand also a boot camp. And we are looking to identify solutions, innovative approaches, how to come up with tech-based solutions against or combating climate change. And we are also now in the process of designing a program in Anbar with the same aim. I want to thank Capita and the team, especially Muhammad Jamal, Director of Research, that we have this wonderful event today. They have conducted a study which is the basis for this event. And I think this is an excellent idea because we have a foundation that we can reflect on. We can have an exchange of information and expertise. And I think this will initiate thinking, common thinking. Of course, the government of Iraq has a certain responsibility in leading the way and also creating a vision. But we are all in the same boat. And please, can you project the second slide, the second image? It says, so glad the whole isn't at our end. So with this image, I want to actually finish my speech, and I hope that we can tackle that complex situation we are facing now. And it's not only the government that is responsible, but it's all actors involved. And I think this is a very interesting platform today to discuss these findings of the study. And I really hope that it will become a stepstone for future activities. يا سادتي وسيداتي أريد أرحب بكم مرة ثانية وأشكركم عن حضوركم وأتمنى لنا التوفيق ومناقشة مميزة. شكرا جزيلا.
نشكر السيد إرفان ديبل على كلمته. والآن يتفضل الدكتور محمد جمال مدير قسم البحث والتطوير في مؤسسة كابيتا
ليلقي research and Capita who will going to speak of Capita. الصوت نافذ؟ بدي اسمع منها بصراحه. Distinguished guests, I think and the name of all the teams, and we feel that we which we have two, and we have. I would like to raise this question. When was it the first time you hear climate change? What was your impression? What was your impression? Did you think that it is just that it is just luxury, intellectual luxury concerning Iran. In fact, we know that as past the times and the climate change started to appear more and more in ranges and percentages. And as a question started to be raised in academic circles and scientific form society. What are the impacts? What are the changes? The challenges are various, and there are various reasons. It is an international challenge and responsibility. In fact, because everybody, the best question is, what can we do to mitigate these changes, the climate change impacts? This is a great which impacted different sectors on different levels. Hence, there was a commitment and obligation for all institutions to have their fingerprints in this respect. Back Capital started to practice its role, and here, please, let me introduce Capital for you. Capital is an Iraqi private institution working on the development of the Iraqi private sector, training, research, and the support of the rising institutions and enterprises. So far, Capital gave support to more than 120 United companies and participated with 40 companies and facilitated investment. Many new companies and in the research field, Capital produced more than 56 research for local and international institutions. And the most important cooperation we had with GIZ, with a grant presented by the federal besides, there is business landscape which is initiated by our department. We have a virtual and in fact, our cabinet started to focus on this issue of climate change by starting to study this and we have a research was written and this research presents the basis on which this conference is based. We have three perspectives. First of all, general policies, which is very important to the climate change, and we see that all the sectors and institutions are responsible with different levels of responsibility. Secondly, awareness, which is the basic ground of any acts or actions taken in this respect. We cannot have a full support from any department without awareness. Thirdly, the technological aspect, and here we see the important role which can be played by technology and the role of technology in different fields and practices, encountering certification, planning, etc. Hence, should have good solutions based on technical. And our conference today is an invitation from all of us to think about solutions from the perspective of trains, so that we define the responsible persons, the responsible sectors, and which sector is more influential. Our conference is considered a launching point in the response to the climate changes and give support in the three fields so that we conclude and achieve our targets, diversification, supporting the Iraqi economy, diversification, and cooperation with everybody. Finally, I would like to thank everybody who participated in this conference, ladies and gentlemen who attended, and I invite them all to express his opinion, his or her opinion, and forest her views, depending on their expertise and knowledge. Finally, thank you very much for capital parties for continuous support and coordination, which in fact takes different forms, materialistic, financial, intellectual, academic, etc., especially GIZ, our main partner, which gives a lot of support. Then I will leave you, leaving you with brainstorming, but not windstorm, just storm. Thank you very much, and all the best. I would like to thank Mr. Dr. Mohammed Jamal, and now go to Mr. Ahmed Al-Khazraji to direct and manage the first session. Policy and decision making in climate change related projects. The panel discussion is the moderator of the panel is Mr. Ahmed Khazraji, and the panelists Dr. Hashim Muhammad Abed, Ali Riba Quraishi, Haval Ahmed, and Dr. Nazir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I welcome you. It is my honor to be with you, and we have experts who have knowledge, good knowledge, and expertise. We agree, all of us agree, that this issue represents the hot issue, and it is, in fact, a very important issue and challenge for all the countries all over the world. Then there are and there should be decisions and resolutions taken by the decision makers, which are very important for future generations. Hence, we have to work from now to control this issue. The legal legislations are very important, and we have an opportunity to listen to the experts' opinions and to know their experiments and their institutions' experiments, and to have a dialogue and discussion to come out with the best practices. We found that Capita, in fact, has engaged the concerned parties which work on the climate change and the mitigation of the impacts of climate change, and we found that the governmental department played the most important role. The governmental sectors are defined as the best player or the most important actor. We find that the local governments, in fact, have their roles in supporting policies. However, the opportunities, in fact, is not up to all the departments to deal and address this issue. In addition, In fact, the international organizations like United Nations or agencies and the American and USAID and GIZ have good efforts and steps and procedures in supporting the Iraqi government to work in fields. Now, let us start with the first panel, which is going to discuss very important issues like policies, the good of policies in addressing the climate change. And now I invite Dr. Hashim Mohammed Obaid, the technical dignitary of the Ministry of Environment.
شرفتنا دكتور، اهلا وسهلا. كما ادعو السيد علي رضا
Dr.
القريشي
Ali
ممثل
Reza
برنامج الأغذية العالمي
Al-Quraishi,
في
the
العراق.
representative of World Program in Iraq. I invite Mr. Hawal Ahmed Mohammed, the head of the Department of Environment and from Kurdistan region. Finally, Dr. Nadir Aboud, the head of the organization of Al-Manaf al-Akhbar, Green Climate of Iraq. I hope that we have good discussions, and I hope that different institutions make use of your dialogue and your conversation. The first thing we are going to tackle and discuss is the policies. Let us start with Dr. Hashim Mohammed, the representative of the technical committee of the Ministry of Environment in Iraq. Doctor, what is the role of the steps of the Iraqi government, which represented by the Minister of Environment, and encountering this issue, which is very important for the world and for Iraq in particular? Yes, please. In the name of Allah.
السادة الحضور مع حفظ الألقاب والمناصب، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
Distinguished
وبركاته.
guests, peace be upon you. It's my honor to represent your conference, my ministry, hoping that we conclude the required results. My answer to your question is that Iraq, since the start of the climate changes and their impacts, Iraq is one of the first countries which was the first one of the pioneer countries in dealing or in addressing this issue through joining, accessing to Paris Agreement, which indicates the seriousness of the Iraqi government to participate and make its best, makes its efforts and to have a role in on the local and international level. Iraq then, in fact, presented with the in participation with UNDP, Iraq presented the document of the national participation, which represents the participation of all ministries, in addition to the preparing the green paper, which represents the national policy which will be followed in MDC. Taking into consideration the impact or the record of Iraq and the climate change impact, it is 0.2, but Iraq is serious and it feels that there should be good participation and active participation because it's very important issue. MPC, in fact, if we, in fact, it is very important for these activities and efforts, and Iraq is committed to implement, is committed to address no less than 15 to 20% of its emission with the international support. But if there is no international support, Iraq is committed to reduce its emissions by 1 to 2%. Iraq, in fact, joined many agreements and the treaties concerned with the climate changes, and there are many other steps and procedures taken by Iraq. And finally, we see that the Iraq government is very serious to mitigate the impact of this issue through the conference of Basra, which was attended by the Prime Minister, Mr. Mohammed al-Shia al-Sudani. In addition to recommendations, all these were taken into consideration, recommendations and other steps which reflect the awareness of the Iraqi government. And we have to remember the last bidding license bidding, which in fact paid attention to the climate changes and the other issues. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hashim, for your speech. Before we go to the second question, please, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, I would like to draw attention to the important discussions, and please keep it quiet. What you have said, Dr. Hashim, is very important and is related to many aspects and sectors, especially the agricultural aspect. There are many initiatives taken. Now we go to the representative of the World Food Program. How do you participate? In what way your program participate in the this issue and the concerned and related issues and fields?
Very much for the question. First of all, I would like to thank Capita for inviting me here. I think it's great to see that climate change agenda is really picking up in Iraq, and there's a lot of discussion and actions that are happening, and the commitment from the government of Iraq in addressing the impacts of climate change are quite evident. Climate change and food security are integrated. There is always a very clear consequence of not addressing climate change impact, and you see that in terms of food security. And then we heard His Excellency the Deputy Minister this morning that has a direct consequence on the national security. So we talk about the peace, development, humanitarian nexus, and from that approach we look at climate change in Iraq. We have clearly seen the impact of drought in the last. Alhamdulillah, this year the rain has been great. But we should not rely on a good year and forget the bad years that we have had. We have seen that Iraq's agricultural production almost halved. We have seen how the water levels are constantly going down. But more importantly, an issue that we always talk about with our friends, the farmers in the field, there is a reality which has the climate has changed. The water quality has changed, the water availability has changed, rain patterns have changed. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to continue utilizing the same practices that the forefathers did? Or is it time to accept that there is a change in climate? So what are the new techniques, technologies, knowledge that is needed by the farmers now of current era to adapt to that change? Because it is not a doomed scenario. We have seen countries where with less water, they can produce more than what Iraq produces. And the examples are within the region. So what we are doing is bringing the best knowledge, the best practices, and the technology from the other parts of the world. And one, working with the government, especially the Ministry of Water, Ministry of Environment, and Ministry of Agriculture, seeing how that technology, that knowledge can be adapted within Iraq context. Because what worked in UAE may not necessarily work exactly as is in Iraq. It has to be adapted to the context. So that's the most important thing that has to be done. And that's an area where we work on. Then how do we help the smallholder farmer? Because again, you have those people, and I liked what I heard this morning about the just transition, because those who have resources, they're able to buy knowledge, they are able to buy technology that will help them. But then what about the poor smallholder farmers? Who's going to help them? How do we ensure that they get the knowledge that is needed to produce at viable economic levels and scale? And that's where the whole of government action comes in. And there we work under the umbrella of the UN. As you know, the UN works in Iraq under the UN Cooperation Framework. And one of the key parts of the UN Cooperation Framework is climate change. A key pillar of our work is climate change. And many UN agencies are working at different levels. So you have a lot of upstream. We heard His Excellency, the Deputy Minister, talk about UNDP that has provided quite extensive support to the government of Iraq on the upstream in terms of developing the NDCs, etc. Also in terms of renewable energy and policy changes that are required. Then other organizations like us and FAO, we work at the field level with the relevant ministries to bring the latest, to bring climate smart agriculture. So I don't like to use these terminologies because sometimes they seem like buzzwords, but really these are the technologies that will help the farmers in Iraq adapt to climate change. More importantly, and also which is relevant to today's topic, is how do we use tech? Now, in Iraq, again, when we look at the decades of conflict, the sanctions and then the recent violence of Daesh, the entire infrastructure has been affected quite a lot. There has been less investment in advancement. Let's look at your climate information systems. Today, the world is able to better predict the rainfall. We can tell whether the rain in Baghdad will be in which part. If that information becomes available to farmer, especially in the rain-fed agriculture areas, it can help them significantly with avoiding loss of investment, but also when to plant, how to plant, what type of seeds to plant based on the predictive pattern. And there's a lot of work that is happening now, especially in integration of the information between Ministry of Transport, which has one part of data, Ministry of Agriculture, which has another part of data, and Ministry of Water, which has another part of data. How do we bring it all together and then make sure that the poor farmer in Nineveh has access to that information at the right time, is where we want to leverage technology in the next phase and bring that out.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for your speech. دعوني أنتقل الآن حضورنا الكرام إلى جهود الحكومة العراقية الآن موسعة جدا من خلال مؤتمر البصرة ويليها مؤتمرنا الحالي في مواجهة
how to tackle the climate change impacts. Let's transfer to Mr. Habal Hamad, Director of Environment Improvement Committee in Kurdistan Region. Mr. Habal, will you please tell us about the Kurdistani government efforts to tackle climate change impacts? Please go ahead. May peace be upon you all, and on behalf of Director Mr. Abdurrahman Siddiq, honestly, I would like to thank Capital Organization and GIZ Organization of their immense effort to bring us to this conference. It is very important, as climate change is an important topic, of course. No, and hope which that climate change have affected us. Honestly, it affects our lives directly. So we talk frankly about how climate works. So Pakistani government is taking these challenges, environmental challenges and climate change seriously, and implementing the work and executive plans to deal with this topic. Dealing with problems in Pakistan just as middle of Iraq and southern Iraq, as the sector affected by the climate change. Honestly, as Pakistani seek to work seriously and to shed the light on this topic. As for water, fire, it is one of the most critical topics for the Kurdistani government. And we started our program or plan to establish artificial lakes to deal with the lack of water shortage. The agriculture sector suffers from water shortage. The water for the citizens, even though this program, this plan of artificial lakes, it preserves the citizens from the flood danger. It is a mean to, or as a shield against floods of the rivers. Kurdistan, where 18 artificial lakes have been established, and currently working on 28 artificial lakes, which is considered as water source for the agriculture and as well as in the tourist sector. As for the beauty of the landscape of the city or government, honestly, energy sector, it is important sector which the Kurdistani region are shedding the light upon. And the first time we have taken advantage of the accompanying gas, and as well as the gas refinery in Sargala, where we transfer these gas into energy, which is to almost approximately 65 megawatts. This is in itself is a project, is a pioneer project to mitigate the emission of methane gas that affects the global warming at the global level, and mitigation. The energy topic have been adopted by the Natural Resources Ministry. As the gas and gas, we have as well other projects like in sepsing area, how to deal with the flare gas and how to get the most benefit of it. How many megawatts can we transform into energy? Sarkala refinery works currently in generating energy, electrical energy. The Ministry of Electricity have taken steps. Frankly, these steps have been important, and the clean energy thing and the renewable energy as well. in Erbil, Aslamani, and we have 1,000 megawatts of electrical energy produced through renewable energy, which is called compound cycle. It means almost 1,000 megawatts in each week to work, and the work has actually stopped. And regarding the smart meter device, what it is, where the citizen can put this device if he has energy, a solar energy, for example, he can put this device, smart meter, and the energy of this solar system can be used as electrical energy, where he can produce energy that is more than what he needs. There has been relegations and restrictions have been issued to the Ministry of Electricity in regards to how citizens will cooperate with the national network through the solar system for the citizens. It is from the instructions of the ministry. We have other plans, the solar systems Pakistan as well, which is currently in the one, which depends on the solar energy. What I have mentioned about the recycled energy, now we talk about the solar energy. You know, bridges and mountain in Kurdistan, thank God, we have made steps, great steps in this regard. These bridges and infrastructure is causing a huge traffic. These which have helped to mitigate the emissions and the traffic jam, the long distances where the citizens have transport from one point to another. Now the roads have helped in reducing the greenhouse energy gases. Now we work on the agricultural sector, the health sector, that in terms of the adaptation. Frankly, there is how to face this the financing aspect. Financing is not an easy aspect where the government cannot adopt all these projects. The financing aspect is important to us to help us to do these projects in Kurdistan region. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Habal, for your great efforts that make us proud that there are such people working in this field. Hopefully, the cooperation with capital organization to, when the conference ends, hopefully we'll come with solutions to all these challenges. And we're glad to convey your experience and your region to other areas of Iraq. As for the Kurdistan, now we go to Dr. Zabir, founder of the Green Climate Organization. Dr. Zabir, now we are looking to the climate change in the world. Can you tell us about the efforts of the local organizations and how they deal with climate change crisis? Please, on this, thank you very much. The peace people, thank you for the invitation. I am sick today because I was from the last conference, but I seek to come to this session to shed the light on this topic. Before I start today about our sessions about policies. Honestly, there is a story about the climate change, how climate action as IPCC have been rejected in the past because that doesn't goes well with the fossil fuel in Iran. There are other diplomatic matters have been affected the world go of the world flow regarding the climate change. In 2009, there was a framework treaty on the climate change. Since that time, there was a story very hard to me. I was honored to convey this file since 2007 to till this day. As for the policy objective of this session for today is a tiring story as it deals with the climate change in a country that relies 95% its economic relies on fossil fuel. So it was a hard journey. Hopefully it will end in it ended with a nice end or a beautiful end in Al Basra conference. This was the hardest, which is called political will. And how can we convince the political figures that should change its economic policies regarding the climate change, which includes any paragraph, political paragraph regarding the political change and all factors. Honestly, we faced huge challenges in this topic on how to focus, how to raise awareness about the first leg. Should we go to the political aspect of policymakers or to the community directly? We have seen to go with the decision makers and educate them about this aspect. Honestly, with the efforts of the United Nations organization, the work has started since 2010, and we have completed what is called the support to the governmental organizations. We have established a climate change department in the Ministry of Department. We gave awareness about capacity building. It is a total different situation since it was in 2010. We have worked on the political, political side. If you allow me to give you an example of this hardship, an example in 2015, I have worked with the department regarding the climate change at that time. We have taken a long time. We have taken a huge effort, a huge time on the definition of the letter I, of how will the country work on the climate change. We have worked with the Prime Ministry. There was a rejection from the Ministry of Oil to adopt that policy. We have failed to send the policy to the UN interval. We have entered into another dialogue with the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of on how to convince the Ministry of Oil that this aspect is important. It is the most valuable sector in Iran. So the policy have gone through lots of hardship. In 2016, there was an approval on the signing the Paris Convention. We have a great deal of effort to convince the policymaker that how the world transferred from Kyoto to Paris in 2016. Iraq have signed that treaty, but since that time till 2020, the Iraqi public have been convinced and approved to join the Paris Convention on climate change. Since that time, Al Basra Convention, there was an effort on how to declare that Iraq right now has transferred from the planning phase into executing phase. There was a policy, the NDC forward advised the climate change and its attachments regarding the mitigation and adaptation that we can talk about later on. Truly, we shall know how to use it in the next phase, in regarding the executing phase. And now, in regards to the civil society organization, truly it is a feeling, it's a personal feeling. Since an early time, I knew that the climate change is a critical aspect for Iraq, not only for Iraq, but for the whole world. Now, I have founded the Green Climate Foundation Iraq, and I named it Green Foundation. So this one, this climate is in the title. All the definitions regarding the biological and the renewable energy have taken into account ourselves to support the government in giving an idea about the climate, as we have specialized in this field. We have honored to present in 2015 a format of 57 points explains the importance of Iraq signing of Paris Convention with the Prime Minister. It was an opportunity to enter the entering into Paris Agreement and signing in 2016. It is an important thing for us. So we have contributed in the climate change aspect, and we are continuing in this regard. Thank you very much. Thank you for your explanation. As the main point of our session is about the climate change impact, let me return to Dr. Hashim Abboud, representative of the, excuse me, representative of the Environment Minister.
As an implementive department, I think the policy needs legislation so that we have outputs or rules concerning this subject. We want to know the role of the Minister of Environment in setting up or legislating new legislations and sending them to the Council of Representatives to be endorsed. First of all, yes, we need legislations. We need to reframe the work and the efforts and to apply the our ministry vision, which in fact targets preserving human beings and preserving the climate. Hence, there are many steps taken to amend the law 27 related to the environmental issues. Iraq should cope with the world trends, which in fact aim at mitigating climate change impacts. There are new features which in fact appeared in Al Basra conference and the Prime Minister recommendations to adopt procedures taken by the Parliamentary Committee of Health to adopt the new procedures and the steps which reflects the Iraqi seriousness to cope with this issue. Furthermore, there are future activities, new amendments implemented by the Ministry of Environment to be sent to the Prime Minister and then to the Parliament. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I go back to Mr. Ali Rida, the representative of the World Food Program in Iraq. Mr. Ali, how your program can interfere or amend or participate in amending the policies in Iraq as a partner of the Iraqi government? And how do you think about the policies in the future era or in the future phase related to the climate change's impacts. دعونا نبدأ مع مؤتمر البصرة. حقيقة مهم جدا أن نرى التوصيات التي خرج بها هذا المؤتمر والمبادرات التي طرحها والخطوات التي قد اتخذتها حكومة العراق وأعلن عنها.
Brought together all the stakeholders. Now, many of them are already enshrined in different legislation, but some of them do require that there are executive actions taken to implement what is already in the law. And there are many examples there. But there are some where we would need to look at what policy implications are there. So let's look at when we look at the impact, especially from where we sit and from where we approach climate change, is from the zero hunger perspective, right? How do we ensure that the climate change does not result in a food insecurity for the most vulnerable people? Because remember, who's at the front line of the climate change? It's the most vulnerable communities that do not have the resilience, that do not have the resources to deal with the impact of the climate change. How do we ensure that the government has the right policy, the right evidence? First and foremost, for any policy, you also need the right evidence. So how do the decision makers have the right evidence? Then the right policies are enacted for those based on that evidence, and then the right structures are set up to implement the policy. Unfortunately, sometimes we declare the win when the policy has been developed. Once the policy is developed, policy is approved, we all get together, we do a big self-praise, and then we forget that the most difficult part now is the implementation of that policy. So where we are working with the government always, one on building evidence. So there's a lot of work that's being done with the Central Statistics Office and the Kurdistan Regional Statistics Office. As I mentioned, climate information system is one, because you can take anticipatory actions based on information. I liked what Irfan showed this morning, that, you know, if I'm sitting here and I'm just looking at COVID crisis, then I forgot that there was an economic recession. And then once the COVID was over, we took the COVID wave, we suffered from it, but then as human beings, we are resilient, we moved on. We are now looking at the economic recession, but the big one that the economic recession is preventing us from looking is climate change. So anticipatory actions can help us address climate change issue. If I know that in 2 years, 3 years, we are expecting a very dry spell in Iraq, then the national policies should result in an anticipatory action so that we can prepare for that 3 years from now. Science allows us to do that. How do we use that information? So that is what we are now trying to do, move the government towards more legislating actions on anticipatory action, legislating actions on preparedness. Preparedness is the most important part that we sometimes forget. We know globally, as an agency that has responded to many man-made and natural disasters, that investing in preparedness and early action saves $7 to $14 of what it requires to respond to an emergency. So that needs to be enshrined in the national policies, investment and budget, and backed by solid evidence base, but structures within the government that are looking beyond each ministry mandate or each UN agency mandate, but cross-sectoral. I mean, again, this morning's picture was great, where we saw the board where, you know, I'm in a particular ministry and I'm saying this is a problem of the Ministry of Environment. So the board has a whole and only the Ministry of Environment should deal with it. No, we all have to come collectively. But that requires, again, clear responsibilities written in policy frameworks and laws, but then in terms of the structures, implementation structures that are needed. And we are currently working on that. just taking one small set where I mentioned this morning about climate information system. When you look today, at least there are 4 different entities within the government which hold that data. But because that data doesn't come together, you have not leveraged the power on how that data can be used for anticipatory actions. And hopefully very soon, by working with the government, we should have that vision come true. I hope within a year, the farmers will have better information on their phones regarding whether the rain will happen in their farm area or not, and how they can use that information better. Thank you.
Thank you Mr. علي. انتقل الان الى السيد هافال رئيس قسم البيئه
Now
الحضريه
I
في هيئه حمايه
move to Mr. Haval from Kurdistan region. Mr. Haval, you talked about the Kurdistan region efforts and its government. Can you address the policies? Can you tackle and discuss the policies taken now and in the future in the Kurdistan region? As I said, that the climate and environmental challenges, in fact, present the priority, represent a priority for the Kurdistan region. The sustainable efforts, in fact, are taken in different fields, economic fields, building good infrastructures, attempting to attract investments, trying to or attempting to decrease our dependence on oil production and oil export. The Kurdistani government, Kurdistani region government, issued the Green Investment Guide, and this guide was issued and prepared by the Investment Commission and the Commission of Improving Environment in Kurdistan region. It includes the policies and the orientations or the steps which the Kurdistan region government attempts to apply in countering and tackling climate changes. We know that the subject or the issue or responsibility is not only on the shoulder of the governments, but the private sector, the individuals have their roles. And as a Commission of Improving Environment in Kurdistan, we have our part, we have our role in addressing the climate changes, because we are the contact point of other ministries, and we have a committee of climate changes in Kurdistan region, which implements the items of MNC, the national participation document, which includes the major axes related to the climate change. And here we, in our commission, with coordination with all the ministerial sectors, we work hard to implement this document, which is considered one of the most important documents in managing the dossier of climate change. Our policy and our plan, which was endorsed by the Council of Ministers for 2023, is to tackle the climate change. The main priority of the plan is tackle the climate change endorsed by the Council of Ministers at its meeting on the 21st of December 2022. The Climate Committee, in fact, works on the capacities of the members, and all the committees, in fact, are working on the capacities of their members, and the international organizations support for the Kurdistan region and the renewable energies field and in the smart agriculture in fact, are some of the major policies we try to depend in or apply in Kurdistan. Thank you, Mr. Haval. Now we move to Dr. Nadir, who established the organization of the Green Climate. Dr. Nadir, since you are the or being the founder of this plan, I think you are aware of all the governmental plans. The question is, what about the role played by the organizations, different organizations in dealing and cooperating with government in the respect of policies and legislations? In fact, I would like to say that the works and the efforts were resulted in the umbrella. The main question هو وكيف this in fact represents a good step and movement. The Ministry of Environment started a new phase of negotiation and communication with the Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Finance. So today we have continuous work including this document in the national policies, other national policies, and how we strengthen the other legislation, because the NDC cannot be implemented without update and enhancement of the legislations related to environmental and all other sectors, because the NDC has two lines. The first line, which focuses on the mitigation of gases, and the other one is focusing on the adaptation. Then it includes all the departments, whether governmental or private. However, there are some critics for the document, but in fact it was a very important step taken to counter and to tackle the challenges and changes. In fact, we have to have this NDC to obtain this stage, and then we go to the annexes stage. Let me clarify for you that and tell you that the work now is in two lines. The first one is upstream and the second one is downstream. The upstream, we focus on the policies and the integration and mainstream in the NDC, and complete the other documents. And the downstream focuses on implementing projects on the ground. Hence, the Ministry of Environment focused on NAMA, which is concerned with the description and defining the scenarios, the scenario of mitigation in NDC. And there are two scenarios related to mitigation. It's 1 to 2%, depending on the national effort and national budget. 1 to 2% is in fact this needs a definition, and the NAMA document supported by UNDP focuses on this aspect. The second thing is investment in the green economy with 15 percentage, which comes to 15 million, and this is an external finance, and there are multilateral fund and bilateral fund, and this should be defined by NAMA document. In fact, we have another document, and the document is involved with how to increase resilience in the most vulnerable groups and areas. This is a description of the most vulnerable areas: the resilience, agriculture, water, biodiversification as priorities in this issue. Hence, moreover, there is another document which represents one of the axes of this conference, which is technology. We have another document called technology assessment. We need a change in the technological employment. You need to support this project. And our organization, in fact, was honored to be the contact point and the coordinating point between the Ministry of Environment and these organizations. These are the efforts, and my advice and recommendation working in the field of climate change is, first of all, focus on your specializations and the staff and the teams they have. They either support the upstreams, because we still need the support. In fact, the science of the green economy, which is called supporting economy, its value Iraq is planning for in 2030 is $100 billion, which focuses on flare gas, oil industries, and the other issue side is the adaptation. The vision is clear, and we are in a very clear and obvious stage. Then we need that the focus to be general. We used to have a governmental focus, but now we need a community response and social response. Then on downstreams, our organization worked hard. We worked with the British Council on raising awareness and integrating the subject with the school curriculum, and we worked with the French embassies, in fact, to increase the resilience of people working in the marshes. We have a genetic change. There was changes. There are changes in for people. We have gas emissions, etc. But we have good response by the international community, and in the negotiations of UNCCC and the state members, they depend the principles of CBDR. But when the commitment was changed into contribution, all people start all over the world the responsibility of preserving the globe, the planet. See here is contribution and not commitment. Iraq is committed itself with its capacity with what it can do. Then 1 to 2% governmental effort and 15% received. We have vertical fund and the international community, in fact, has its part. Carbon market is not defined so far in Article 6 and Paris Agreement. Hence, we have a good opportunity here to have a bilateral dialogues and conversation with countries. Iraq wants carbon to be the form of the economy, future economy. We have the supporting economy, and we want to add the carbon to the fossil fuels. After 2030, we should be all prepared for this issue and prepared for using technology and modern technology and the use of economy and carbon. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Nadir. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for this long conversations. The last question is addressed to Mr. Hashim Mohammed, the representative of the technical deputy of the environment ministry. Sector, the implementing of the policies related to the climate change. What are the obstacles encountered by the Ministry of Environment? And please touch upon, in short, the procedures, governmental procedures through legislations and policies. Through the definition of policy, the policy, in fact, is founded because there are obstacles. Then we have obstacles first, then we have policies. The Iraqi government and its program set up a good space for tackling climate change. Then Iraqi government recognizes obstacles. Then it started launched a governmental program. Besides, in Basra, in the Basra conference, there is a clear and obvious governmental approach to mitigate climate changes. On the practical side, Iraq, with the participation on an initiative of the Ministry of Environment and the support of the Ministry of Environment, we have the national initiative of energy and mitigating and reducing emissions. In fact, we hope this initiative is transformed into policies. It is composed, we have 3,000 employees all over Iraq with the participation including Kurdistan region. There are procedures which aim at mitigating climate changes, and the initiative will be changed or transformed into a policy to put an end to climate change impact. As for the governmental effort, the Prime Minister, in fact, ordered to formulate a high committee to deal with this issue. And there is another committee to control and monitor pollution and water resources. Sorry, I took a long time. Sure. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I talked a lot. There is a document. I have a document, but it's a very long document concerned with the national contributions. There is the High Committee of Climate Changes, which reflects the governmental insistence on working in this trend or in this way. The central bank is engaged. Some other sectors and institutions are engaged, and this indicates the serious intention to put an end to the climate change's impact. Thank you very much, Dr. Hashim. We invite you to cooperate with the Capita and GIZ in this respect. My dear guests, thank you very much, Dr. Hashim from the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Ali from the program, Mr. Haval Ahmed from Kurdistan region, Dr. Nadir Aboud from the Green Climate, Iraqi Green Climate Organization. Thank you very much. Now we go to the second and the third sessions and panels, and invite my colleague here to these discussion sessions. Thank you.
مدير الجامعة.
Session Ahmed please monitor the QR code, the questionnaire of Miss Epstein's cabinet. This question regards the climate change in general, about how your organization will challenge the climate change. And this conviction will share the results we have gathered in this. Scan the QR code by using your mobile phone's cameras.
المفروض نسبيل جدا.
During the which will last about 15 minutes. After which we'll continue our session. The second or third session will be finished with a lunch. Thank you very much.